Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into the microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Deus Ex Human Revolution Blind. Now, after wasting the last hour running around like a headless chicken, I managed to at least find Burke, but as you can see, our meeting didn't end that well for me, so let's retry that. Okay, it didn't. It saved in a rather problematic place for me, but I guess I do have the EMP grenade at the very least, so maybe I should do that. I hope one of them is enough.
I'm curious. How far do you think your I think it's a shame
Okay, so there are snipers all around, and there are some darts over here, which I definitely want. Okay, I'll take this. I'll wait for my health to regenerate before applying the painkillers.
Your head's strong. It may have served you well in the past, but ultimately, it's a plaything.
Okay, now eat this. And now organize it in such a way that I can fit the darts here. Okay, save. Hopefully none of them... yeah, I think none of them died in that big explosion of the bot. Quick.
There's no way off this place except through mages.
Accidentally opened up the Steam overlay. Okay, I'll activate the cloak and try to run into a better position or something. And there's a turret in the middle here. Okay, presumably
Your head's strong. It may have served you well in the past, but
Burke himself is here, but I can't hack this door because I only have hacking 4. Okay, hopefully this maybe contains the code to the door, which would let me get inside, and maybe there's a security panel there that could let me hack the turrets. I think I'll try to save the darts for the taser by taking this guy out in melee. I'll hide behind this to read this. Security Bay Office. Okay, so it is the code. That's definitely useful.
like trouble.
That didn't work.
Get it! Wrong place, boy!
Okay, to be honest, that was uncharacteristically easy, all things considered. I'm kind of surprised by that. I'll eat that straight away. There are still some people left to deal with downstairs. Before I go there, I would like to hack the computer if possible. Maybe learn something more
Reloading! Cover!
about their plans. Nothing in the lockers themselves. Okay, let's check this. Oh. I guess I'll have to wait until... I'll have to wait until I took care of the rest of the enemies, because they're shooting at me through the window. Okay.
Get him!
There's no way off this base except through vengeance.
Wrong place, boy!
That's kind of weirdly anticlimactic compared to all of the other boss fights in the game. But I guess after all the trouble I've had in this place, I'm not even mad about that. It's actually quite a big boon, considering how bad I am at it. Okay, so there's a bunch of them on the ground floor, and then also there's a bunch of snipers on the catwalks. How do I deal with them? How does he see me? I thought I was invisible, to be honest, but maybe they can see the air shimmer a little, much as I can when dealing with the cloaked enemies. But in that case, it's kind of limiting the usefulness of...
I can hear you, goddammit!
of that whole augmentation. Okay, there's still a bunch of them on the ground, I think. At least 3, and then even more of them on those catwalks. There's another one of those, maybe. Is that all of them on the ground then? I keep hearing them, but I guess Maybe they are up here?
Make him pay!
And hopefully I can disable the turret from here. Munition case, okay, that's definitely
No one is
useful.
supposed to be here. I can hear you got...
It sounds like your struggles are almost over, Bratan. Is Burke dead?
I'm standing, he's not. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh, you don't make things easy, do you? Still, with Burke out of the picture even briefly, there's a power vacuum I can use. Return to loading bay 2. The doors between here and the docking platform will be opened for you.
Last time I passed through there, Burke's men were still waiting for me.
Not anymore. Burke has just ordered them away.
Great. Except I came here looking for Megan Reed, Bratan. I can't leave without knowing.
There is a boat heading toward our location as we speak. If you hurry, you can be on it.
I must say, I'm somewhat uncomfortable with Jensen using this weird voice when speaking words in a foreign language, because it almost feels like he's mocking the non-English speaking people by by parroting their speech in a weird manner. And also, first of all, let me think about this. Okay, I'll drop the frags now, I guess. Hopefully I can sell the things to someone soon-ish. Okay, I guess I no longer care about that much. To be honest, this whole location is the first place
Access granted.
in which I've started to seriously consider that maybe by going non-lethal I'm doing more harm than good. Like, as I said, by not killing any of them, not even Burke, the commander, I basically ensured that this place is going to run for like months or maybe even years, and that's even assuming Kavanagh manages to bring it down at all in the end, because obviously the worst case scenario is that it's going to run forever because the evidence she brings against it are going to be inconclusive. But I just, like, it's such a difficult thing for me to accept that I personally should be the person deciding, who's going to live, and I should just kill them because I consider them evil in this particular case. Like, it just creates so many wormholes you could fall into. I'm not even like I at least think, in general, I am an opponent of the capital punishment, but mostly on like practical terms, because in theory I could accept it for most heinous crimes, but I'm mostly worried about judicial mistakes, because obviously whenever you sentence somebody to death and then act on that sentence and later on he's exonerated, there is nothing you can do, the person is dead. And to me, the risk of the state executing at least one person who's later found innocent is already too great. And in reality, there have been studies done on that, and I think the numbers go into hundreds at this point. judging by the old cases, especially at the point before and when you compare the cases from before and after DNA testing was invented. They went back to all of those, well, not all, but some of those old cases, and they re-examined them, and it turned out that the person that they already executed for a particular crime was actually innocent, but there's nothing you can do about it at this point. But in theory, if you assumed that there is a zero possibility for any kind of mistake or oversight, I could accept, death penalty for some crimes, but still, I think it should be a matter of state and a matter of, free courts that would decide the matter and deliberate upon the matter. And I'm not at all comfortable with the thought of a single vigilante, because basically what I'm doing throughout the whole game, to be honest, I'm not really acting within the boundaries of the law. I'm dispensing vigilante justice, and I am not at all comfortable with the idea that a single person, a single vigilante, should have the power of straight up kill people because he decides they are evil. Like, this is as clear-cut case as you could make them, probably, and if anyone in this game deserved to be killed by me, it's probably Burke, but still, I think, and as I said, I very much feel bad about the ineffectiveness of my non-lethal run in the broader perspective, because of the fact that there's no one here that would arrest them after I knock them out, or that would, put them away in jail. They are going to just get back up and continue with what they were doing anyway. So what I afforded them is basically a couple of hours of a nap, and that's all of the change that I've made currently. And I definitely don't feel comfortable with that, but I feel even less comfortable with the idea of picking particular people who I deem quote-unquote evil enough for me to kill, and the others who are not evil enough for me to kill. It's just so difficult, and it leads to some places that are not very good, because obviously if we allowed this rule that a particular person that's not a court of a state of law, but a particular single person or a group of vigilantes could simply decide that some people don't deserve to live, or that they should be physically eliminated because they are evil, then it can be applied to pretty much everything at some point, because each person has different sensibilities, and each person has different motives, different understanding of the world. And that's why I think, for example, that there are few things in the public discourse that annoy me as much as this apparent, well, obviously it's not it is a consensus in some spaces and in some political groups that, for example, it's okay to use physical violence against people with seriously prejudiced views. The proverbial saying of is it okay to punch a Nazi? And there are some people who say obviously it is, because the Nazis want to enact physical violence and ultimately probably genocide against whole groups of people, so it is okay to punch them. And I understand where that is coming from, but I think it's a wholly backwards logic, and it is because of all those things I was talking about. It is only if anyone should have the right to use physical violence, then to me it should only be the state, and only after fulfilling all of the necessary checks and balances and all of the necessary procedures, and in strict accordance with those procedures. Because if we allow particular people to decide who is punchable and who is not, then it's simply going to be chaos, and and it's going to lead into dissolvement of politics into basically a brawl, because obviously for the Nazis, whoever says it is okay to punch, to physically hurt a person because he's espousing seriously prejudiced views is himself acting in a way akin to a Nazi, because to them there are people like, I don't know, non-white people are threatening the white race or something. To them, hurting those people is justified as well, because in their worldview, it's it's the other way around. And if we want to have the moral high ground, then we should behave in such a way that clearly distinguishes us in our methods from them. And now, obviously, a lot of people say that that it's a case of self-defense, because the ultimate goal of the seriously prejudiced people is, in many cases, an ethno-state, and an ethno-state cannot be achieved without violence against minority groups. But that is a flawed argument in my view, because as long as they are only saying those things, to me, you cannot really claim self-defense. The fact that somebody has seriously hateful views isn't an immediate danger upon other people. It might lead to changing the climate, the political climate, in such a way that would facilitate that, but it's basically to say that is to use a slippery slope argument, and I think a slippery slope is somewhat of a fallacy in it of itself, and I feel like it should only be justified to use physical violence in self-defense against physical violence itself, because otherwise you can extend that to whatever lengths you want to, and you end in a mess, basically. I definitely feel like the state should keep a close eye on people, espousing particular seriously prejudiced views, and at some point, when they are calling for direct violence against other people, then maybe the state should intervene. But still, I believe if anyone should, then it is the matter of the state and not of particular people, because each of us has different opinions and different values, and if we left it up to particular people to decide whether it's justified to hurt other people, and said that you can physically hurt other people just because you find their opinions abhorrent, then by the same logic they could do the same to you, because it's always it's always a multifaceted issue. But coming back to my original point from which I started, I feel bad about the ineffectuality of my non-lethal route, but in the end I would probably feel just as bad or even worse, knowing that I've meticulously chosen who deserves to live, and that I enacted my personal views of justice upon other people to such an extent that I straight up killed them. But it's a little bit horrible to realize that in the world depicted in Deus Ex, there might not actually be any other way, because most of the governments, most of the big corporations are all in the hands of the same people, and those people all know each other, and it's a relatively small group compared to the vast majority of mankind. So you can't be reasonably expected to it can't be reasonably expected to see actual justice done by legal means to some of those groups, because presumably they themselves control the legal system, or at least have such big of a sway in it that they can very heavily influence it, which I don't know, pretty much leaves you with either letting it be as it is, or accepting that you are a murderer and just choosing some people to eliminate in the name of your personal values. So that's like a horrible situation to be. I really hope that something comes out of the whole Kavanaugh debacle, and that she provides some kind of serious concrete evidence against Belltower, and that it can be disbanded. If not for, I doubt it's going to be for like lofty moral reasons. Probably the elites of the world aren't going to care, but maybe at the very least it's going to be done for like PR reasons, because I could imagine, for example, Picus could make tons of money by exploiting basically this story as some kind of uplifting documentary about breaking this horrible system of oppression, and about a heroic undercover cop. Whatever, I don't particularly care which way it is done. I just hope it is, because if it's not, then pretty much everything I've done has no meaning at all. And well, apart from the fact I've straight up murdered like a couple hundred people, and if it turns out it's all for nothing, then that's like a horribly depressing thought, and I can't even wrap my head around that. But I guess now I can finally get to this. Remote connection. Burke. Not sure what that is about. Box guard. That is about the bot, right? The large bots are called box guards because they can't come in this large crate and then they unpack themselves. Some jargon. If there's something interesting hidden in here, then I don't quite see it. Okay, so some talking about the experiments that they've been running. Now I still don't quite understand the whole scope of the Hydra system, but I guess what it is like a giant biocomputer that's made out of multiple people, and their like brain power is linked together via the use of augmentations, and it creates this hybrid of organic material and of human brain power and of artificial intelligence. So it's like a hybrid of some sorts, but I guess it kills them after a while, and more often than not it actually kills them probably even before that, because there were a lot of corpses strewn through the base, and I've read a lot about the multiple complications that can arise from this. Whoa. So I guess Darrow himself is involved in that. Okay, I'm not quite sure. Our projects are dependent on a supply of persons. Yeah, but I thought at first that Darrow is in conflict with the Illuminati because he seems to be somewhat distrustful of the current stage of augmentations, despite being one of the pioneers of the subject. He himself, when I met him back at Sarif's office, he himself was like using an actual cane and crutches to walk around, and that surprised me because obviously he's this visionary of augmentation and one of the pioneers of the subject. So you'd think he'd have the most. He'd have the most faith in it, and he'd have the most sophisticated equipment, but for some reason he seems to, at least currently, be distrustful of them. So I assumed that he's in conflict with the Illuminati somehow, because the Illuminati themselves seem to want to influence the augmented people via the use of the new biochip that they are urging everyone to get. So I thought he wants to maybe distance himself from that, but I'm not sure now how it all fits together. Like, he's very clearly directly involved in this project. Both our projects are dependent on a constant supply of persons, so one of them would be probably Pangaea, right? The giant station in the Arctic. Yeah, I'm not sure what to think about it. But I guess that's it for this location. Let's finally leave this place.
Bratan,
Quinn?
I'm afraid our good friend Quinn met with an unfortunate incident during all the commotion and is no longer with us.
Your voice. It was you this whole time. Who are you?
For the moment, I am between identities. I apologize for the duplicity, but it was a necessary precaution. You had to be kept in the dark.
And Keitner? Did she know?
Commander Keitner's perception was much like yours. Shrouded. She saw what she needed to see, and was told what she needed to hear in order for me to complete the mission.
So we were both pawns. Except she's dead and I'm not. So where does that leave me in your grand design?
We are all pawns in someone else's grand design, Mr. Jensen. But that doesn't make Nathania's death any less tragic. Your actions ensured her sacrifice was not made in vain, however. Dr. Kavanagh made it out safely, and is on her way to the rendezvous site. She will expose the truth in due time.
Keitner wasn't the only one who died back there. Those prisoners.
Will be added to a long list of Belltower's atrocities. We will not let them be forgotten. We mustn't stay here much longer, Mr. Jensen, if we hope to get you away from this base.
Okay, so apparently he was the hacker the entire time, and not only that, it seems he worked. He is part of some force outside of Keitner's allegiance and knowledge. She didn't even know he's the hacker. So she just thought he's Quinn, the quartermaster, and I guess that explains why he was so proficient with rigging Burke's artificial eye, because he's clearly highly skilled in various things, including acting. Actually, that this voice change is quite impressive, because the different personalities, they don't sound familiar at all, at least to me. Although obviously English is not my first language, so I probably have a little more of a difficulty in getting that difference. Okay, I definitely want more answers.
I still have questions, Quinn, and I want answers. Real answers, no more bullshit.
You really want to waste time chatting, Bratan? Fine. I will answer what I can, but keep in mind you have a boat to catch.
Belltower probably has a battalion on its way to clean up this mess. How do you plan on keeping what we did here a secret?
I'm delighted to say that Burke did most of the damage control for us. After requesting a profile search on you, he never explained why he needed it. I believe he wanted to keep control of you to himself. Since that time, we've been monitoring all incoming and outgoing communications, and the lockdown allowed me to discreetly install a tunneler, rerouting the base's network traffic. By the time Belltower realizes something is wrong, it will already be too late.
What about the rest of the base personnel?
Most of them think Burke is still in command. Technically, orders continue to be issued in his name, but I'm the one making the calls. I've also taken the liberty of cordoning off this sector of the base. For the moment, at least, we're safe.
Burke isn't exactly dead, and once he wakes up, it's gonna get ugly.
Like I said before, you haven't made things easier for us. But they haven't forgotten that small detail. For now, Burke remains contained. Once you're off the base, I'll find a more permanent solution.
So is he going to kill him? If he wanted to do that, why wouldn't he do it, like, now, before I even confronted him? Like, I guess maybe he needs time to arrange that. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, I probably shouldn't feel bad at all. As I said, if anyone in this game deserves to be killed, it's probably Burke. So, if it will weigh on the conscience of this guy, the hacker, and not mine, then I guess I'm surprisingly okay with murder in that particular case. I was just not totally comfortable doing that myself, which I guess is a bit of a hypocrisy on my part, but nobody's perfect, I guess. I'm just still weighing the different possibilities in my head. I guess the best solution for me is if like 90% of Belltower, maybe excluding the most, maybe not 90% of all of Belltower, but at least the people involved in this particular location would be locked up forever, maybe excluding some rank and file people, like, I don't know, a cook who was handing out the meals at the cafeteria or something. Maybe we can spare him, but I would be okay if all of them were locked for forever in prison. But I guess if he intends to kill them later on, then I can't really blame him, and I definitely condemn murder in principle, but in this particular case, as I said, if anyone deserves to be killed, it's probably those guys.
Keitner said she had been approached by an agent from Interpol. It was you, wasn't it?
Very astute. When I learned of Commander Keitner's suspicions and insubordinate behavior towards Burke, I saw an opportunity. Pretending to be an agent of Interpol seemed the best way to gain her trust.
You mean you lied? So who do you work for?
A loose network of independent operatives, agents of conversion and equilibrium, who seek to expose corruption and assure humanity's natural progress. In truth, we are not affiliated with any global organization. But then, neither is our enemy, officially.
Your enemy? You're not just talking about Belltower anymore, are you? You're talking about...
The men and women who pull Belltower strings. The same men and women who ordered them to kidnap Megan Reed.
So I guess he's part of like some kind of anti-Illuminati group? Like a mirror to the Illuminati. Which I'm not sure how to feel about, because definitely I'm mostly hugely distrustful with the idea of like shadow governments, and even the Illuminati themselves, in principle, at least parts of them. For example, Everett in Deus Ex 1, he claimed to be, aiming for some kind of a moral dictatorship, and he claimed to have the humanity's best interests at heart, but he just said that it can't be effectively done through democratic means. But I don't buy it for a splinter of a second. I think if your only option is to do this, then you'd better do nothing, to be honest. I don't want to live in a world in which things are done from behind the curtain, supposedly for my own good. I'd much rather live in a shitty place, but it would be shitty because of the result of my own choices and the choices of the people, as for example vote, which incidentally is kind of happening in a lot of places. I'm not at all happy with the current Polish government, for example. I think they are not doing a good job at all, and I think that voting them in was a mistake, but I still prefer that to some kind of quote-unquote enlightened dictatorship, which claims to be for my own good, but which derives its power not from the mandate from the people, but from, like, it literally uses its power to justify itself, because they do all those things just because they can. They have enough power, so they think that the fact that they are wealthy and powerful and influential gives them the right to control mankind. And I would never in a million years agree with that, even if their goals were actually noble, and I don't think they are. Certainly whoever came up with this place, which I imagine is mostly Bob Page, is bonkers and probably one of the most evil people I've ever seen in any game. But even the other Illuminati, like Morgan Everett, I didn't trust him at all in Deus Ex 1, and he kept his own mentor, Lucius de Beers, in like a cryogenic freezer for decades, and he lied to him that the technology to unfreeze him didn't exist yet, but it did. But he didn't want to relinquish the power over the Illuminati, and after that he had the audacity to claim to me that he wants to be some kind of an enlightened autocrat, that he, that maybe his methods are bad but his goals are good. Like, I don't buy it for a splinter of a second. But on the other hand, like, if whatever group this guy, the hacker, I don't think I ever learned his actual name, represents, has a similar structure to Illuminati, which is, a shadow government that acts from behind the scenes and is not beholden to anyone, and its members have vast amount of power but are not chosen in any way and are not controlled by anyone, then I'm not really sure if that's better, because at any moment, if they are opposing the Illuminati, but at any moment they themselves might basically become whatever Illuminati are, like, or maybe even, actually that's a possibility I haven't considered, maybe he himself is part of the Illuminati too, and there are just different, because obviously the Illuminati aren't like a formal group. That I doubt there's like a list of membership or whatever. It's like a power clique. So I imagine there are different fronts and different groups of influence within the Illuminati themselves, and they all have different visions for mankind and different goals towards what they want to control and change. So he might as well just be one of them. In either case, I don't really trust him, but I guess whatever it takes to close this place down, it's worth at least investigating. So let's continue.
Alright. Where's Megan?
I don't know for certain. But what I do know is that earlier today, Burke issued orders to have a large group of detainees transferred off this base. Supposedly, they will be assisting at another black site facility.
Kavanaugh said this was just the factory floor. You're sure Megan is at this other facility?
Nothing is ever certain in life, Mr. Jensen. But it is the best chance you have. Unfortunately, the cargo ship carrying the prisoners has already set sail. But I took the liberty to send out an urgent dispatch in Burke's name, ordering the ship's captain to hold position until one more detainee could be flown on board. In stasis. A helicopter is en route to pick you up.
Wait a second. You want me to get inside another stasis pod? Last time I got in one of those things, it didn't go so well.
I know it's far from ideal, but frankly your options are quite limited. Although, I suppose you could try swimming there.
Better be the right fucking boat this time. Because I don't feel like coming back here anytime soon.
Don't worry, mate. It'll be grand. Besides, I thought you Americans liked riding off into the sunset.
So I guess Jensen had a good point there. Like, totally his last adventure inside a stasis pod on a ship didn't end well. Now I guess maybe now is the moment I get the rest of my things. Secure these items. Oh yeah. So I probably need to spend a moment sorting my inventory now. Okay, this is quite cheap, so I am going to drop that. I'll take the remote. Well, did I get the praxis kits as well? Oh, right, I did. Well, it's good to have them. I should probably prioritize the ones I need the most first, because I went a little differently than the last time, so I have to be certain I get everything I need the most until I run out of points. But I think I should have enough to get pretty much all of the things I had, and I've yeah, I had this. Uh, 5 points, you say? I definitely had this. I had this as well. And this. And I have 2 more. I think I'll get... I think I'll get this and this. Well, it's definitely good to have them, and it should give me another row of inventory here, so I definitely want those automatic unlocking devices. Oh, it ended quite well in the end, I guess, because I managed to pick pretty much almost everything up. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I guess entering this will end this segment. Now I wanted to take a while to comment on it in its entirety, because I have very mixed feelings about this mission. Like, originally it very much annoyed me, the whole idea of Jensen getting captured in a cutscene with no way to avoid that felt very cheap to me, and I definitely felt you know, a little weary of the fact that all of my augmentations were removed, so it was like a hard reset. I guess it could be an interesting scenario for some, you know, testing your abilities in a different way, removing all of your power, but to me it just felt frustrating because after all of this time I've spent upgrading my character, it was just suddenly removed, and I was back to square one, and there were so many enemies that, especially if I didn't want to kill them, it was very frustrating to me to deal with all of them without the proper augmentations I gathered throughout the rest of the game. And I do understand that I totally suck at this game and that I was really horrible at it, and I do also understand that it definitely could have been done better, you know, if I approached it a lot slower, eliminating them one by one, you know, carefully studying my position and whatever, but that just didn't... I just didn't feel particularly enthusiastic about it. It felt more like a slog to me most of the time, and I just ran around like a headless chicken with the cloak augmentation until I got to my objectives. But on the other hand, I definitely enjoyed the plot elements, especially in the later part here at the base and at the detention camp. It's probably the most horrible location and the most horrible situation I've ever visited in a game, at least off the top of my head. And I also really liked the moral choice you had to make with the gas. It was very simplistic in terms of design. You know, you only had two options, and it was basically a matter of pressing a button. But I think that despite that, it was really interesting from a moral standpoint, and it had me debating with myself a lot and thinking about the scenario a lot. And it's definitely something that's you know, a big plus for me as far as games go. Whenever a game makes me pause and ask questions about what is right and what would I do in that situation, that is something that I consider very important and very valuable. And in general, I think this location added a lot as far as like putting the stakes in your head and showing you what you're up against, you know, what the people you're opposing are capable of, and why it is important to stop them, because they will stop at nothing to achieve their goals, and their methods, and maybe actually their actual goals as well, but that's beside the point. Their methods alone would be enough to condemn them, and it really like shows you what your enemies are made of, and I think it's important. But also, like, on one hand, the people involved here are so evil that there's no way for me to, I don't know, excuse them or justify them. But despite that, there were a couple of interesting details regarding the connections between this game and Deus Ex 1, especially in the characterization of Bob Page and Gary Savage. Because, for example, the fact that Savage is involved in this, and quite heavily in fact, rather drastically changes my opinion of him back in Deus Ex 1, because, as I said, I don't think this can be excused, and even I understand from what I've read that probably this was his turning point, and it's because of the atrocities committed here that his paths diverged from the path taken by Bob Page, and they eventually became enemies. But still, that doesn't... whatever he has done later on to oppose Bob Savage doesn't really absolve him from the things they were doing here, and it changes my perspective. And a second thing, this place has also done interesting things in characterizing Bob Page, not really not really because it has given him any amount of depth. If anything, it pretty much solidified him as a psychotic sadist maniac who doesn't care about anyone or anything and will commit whatever atrocities to attain his goals. But what was interesting to me is like the remarkable casualness with which he's doing that, because I've read in a couple of emails in this location that he was like almost like having small talk about the horrible atrocities and the human experiments and the torture conducted here, and he was literally using emoticons in emails describing torturing and killing people. So that's just interesting to me, and it shows you how detached he is from like common human experience and from empathy. Like, to him this is all a big game, and that he has something to gain on, and he doesn't, I don't think he really like hates those people or something. I think he doesn't even fully consider them people. Like, to him, all of the lives lost in the pursuit of this project are like are something akin to like a monetary cost. It isn't. That's at least my how I feel about it from reading those emails. That he doesn't fully understand that as something that's. He doesn't even really view it in like moral terms. He views it in strictly like practical terms, and to him he doesn't seem to fully understand that some people can have problems with what is done here, because, as I said, some of his emails were woefully like tone deaf. Kavanagh was writing to him, almost pleading with him that she doesn't feel okay with doing that, and he was literally joking in response to her. Like, that's just weird to me and kind of creepy, and it showcases what kind of a person he is. And as I said, it doesn't really give him depth. I wouldn't say Bob Page is a particularly deep character, on the contrary, actually, but I don't think every character in a story has to be deep. You can have some characters that have pretty straightforward motivations and pretty straightforward characterization, as long as that characterization is consistent and interesting. And I think this part of the game has done a good job in, you know, characterizing the methods and the like the world view of your enemies. So it was interesting in that. But that being said, I'm kind of happy it is over, and I'm happy that I finally have all of my stuff and all of my augmentations back. I was definitely missing them, so it's good to have them. Hopefully I will be able to find at least one more merchant before concluding the game and confronting my enemies, because I have a couple of things would be good to sell. But for now, this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to save here. And that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!